What do you bring to the table as a woman in a relationship? I'm very, very excited to get into this topic because there is something that you should actually bring to the table, the mythical table that we all keep hearing about. And this was spurned from a comment that I got on a recent TikTok video. As you know, I'm going through the Reformed Chauvinist series, and we're diving deep into that on Patreon. We have a few series happening on Patreon. So we have Reformed Chauvinist, which basically is a book written by a man, Confessions. So he said how he used to play women, and then he realized that they were actually people. You're not supposed to do that. And so he's telling us what men really think and how they operate. The other one is Dark Seduction Tactics by Emery Green. And then we have the Never Settle series, along with all the political and astrological things. So it's really a lot. So it's a lot happening over there. And I'm going to also just give you a little update. Towards the end of the year, we're going to be doing 2025 predictions for the state of the world and a little bit beyond. And we're also going to do the monthlies, not the monthlies, but the each sign. So we're going to do what to expect for 2025. So anyways, let's get back to it. My name is Monica and welcome to the place for learning. So what do you bring to the table? So why does this matter so much, and why do people get so up in arms? And to the lady that commented, a woman who wants provision from a man is nothing but a child and shouldn't really be seeking one. I have to say that level of indoctrination into such silliness and nonsense is absolutely astounding, and I'm actually worried. I'm actually worried for your well-being, because if you understood how the world works in this regard, this type of mentality makes you a prime target. You are very susceptible to being abused, manipulated, used, rinsed. I mean, just God knows what else. Okay, I'm going to pray for you and your safety and all who think this way. But what happens is, what do you bring to the table? So this question, honestly, I'm not offended by it. I never was offended by it. Even when I was very young, I used to just think, what a silly thing to even wonder. And I'm very fortunate in that I did not have to spend much time, if in passive sort of fleeting conversation with people who would ask that anyways. And I certainly never intended to. If they did ask me seriously, I would seriously not consider them worthy. And so I had this thing that I would say to all my friends that I'm going to tell you now. Then hopefully you can reframe your thinking if you still have some leftover guilt or programming, shall we say, regarding this sense of unworthiness. You feel unworthy if you feel that you have to come bearing gifts. You have to come bearing gifts to a place that you were invited to. This is very funny. So let's get into it. What do you bring to the table? Nothing except one thing. So when I was, going through life, and people would say to me, "How do you, um, how do you not feel guilty watching a man pay for dinner?" And I would say, "Why would I feel guilty? He asked me to be there. How does he not feel guilty not paying for it?" So I would say to anybody, coworkers, friends, whoever asked me, "Would I invite you to my house for a dinner party? And then when you show up, I say, 'Oh, you didn't bring dinner, or you could just sit and watch me eat.' That's crazy. You would never talk to me again. You would never come to my house again. You would never take me at my word again. You would not think I was trustworthy. You would think I don't understand social and cultural cues, even though we share a language and a culture, right?" So that's very strange, because if you invite me out of the comfort of my own home, that is the gift, right? So the only thing that you need to bring, and I do emphasize need, because I am biased in this, to a date, an outing, you go to the gallery, you go to the ballet, a gala, an art opening, a rock concert, music, anything, a dinner, or a relationship, you need to bring some sense. You have to have politeness, manners, decorum. That's it. That's it. Basic social intelligence. Your pleases and your thank yous. I appreciate it. Thank you for dinner. It was really nice. I appreciate you asking me out, and that you took, for example, I'm very Old Testament with my diet. I appreciate you taking into account that I don't care for seafood and I don't eat pork. And you picked a really nice place that suits me, and I enjoyed everything on that menu. Wonderful. That's it. Just appreciation, delivered in an articulate way that that person can understand. What they asked you to do was not done in vain. You expressed that you had a good time. and you both, shake hands or say goodnight, whatever, okay? That's it. I remember going to a dinner once. It was a first date, and this young man was so lovely. It was a chef's 7-course tasting menu. And I said to him, is also culturally, right? He's Arab. So I said, it's so interesting how people have this whole like 50-50 thing here, whatever. And this was even like maybe almost 10 years ago now. He says, I don't understand. He said, I can't imagine anything better. He said, I'm sitting in a nice place with a beautiful woman who's intelligent. We talk. You make me laugh. The stars are out. It's a peaceful night. Like, what more do you want? Like, this is life. This is life. Like, when you get married, you have 10,000 nights like this. You have thousands of days like this. This is what life amounts to. It's not some massive crescendo. It's not some like Hallmark rom-com or some like, action film. It's just, this is it. This is life. This is living. Someone you introduce to your family, you all get along, you gather. You're not strangers to each other. You gather. You grow the love between you. It's the simplest answer. He's like, what more do I want? I'm having a great conversation. I like what I see. We're enjoying good food. The stars are out. It's not snowing. Well, there was snow on the ground, but it wasn't snowing. He's like, that's it. This is good. This is wonderful, right? So I thought, that's really that simple. You don't have to bring anything. To the person who's asking that, to me, is extremely uncivilized and very immature, and they don't understand the nuance of relationships. So I'm not saying this to be insensitive, but this was a comment left on a video where I had said that I'd met someone in their 40s who had a spouse. I mean, they weren't married and they weren't living together, but they were partners, okay? And they're both in their 40s. And he wants a child. And she's not sure because they're not married. And though he out earns her, he wanted her to pay half the bills, basically. But also, he's the one who's really pressuring her to have this child out of wedlock because he's not sure he wants to get married. And he also doesn't want to pay for this child. And I said to him, sorry, like, not to be rude, but because he's like, I want your opinion because this is the thing. He's like, you will give it to me. I know that you're going to tell the truth. I said, she has no incentive to give you a child. Pregnancy is a high-risk medical activity at any age. Too much can go wrong too fast. Women all around the world endanger themselves and often don't even survive childbirth, even if they're at peak health. Too much can go wrong too fast. At that age, over 35, you're considered a geriatric pregnancy. Forget about it. Her life is on the line, okay? And you're gonna nickel and dime her for some diapers. Are you out of your mind? I said, okay, tell me then what she gets out of that. I'm not being mean. Honestly, tell me. She has no legal recourse if anything goes wrong because she's not married to you. And I know you're going to say, but they can be common law. It's not the same. It's not. You can intellectualize it into the ground. You can have all your convictions and moralize and be modern, and I don't care. I know the truth. I know the facts. It does not work that way, okay? You can't talk someone into being scammed out of something good. It's not here anyway. I know better, okay? I said, what does she get? Because she's going to cook more, clean more, spend more money on you because you're going to eat her out of house and home. And she's going to raise your ungrateful child because you're ungrateful. And that child's going to grow up in an environment with an unhappy mother, a tired mother, a worn down mother. What's the point? What is the point? And he out earns her. So I said, what's the point? What does she get? I said, I'm genuinely curious. I'm not attacking you. What does she get out of doing this massive sacrificial thing for you, for your desire to be fulfilled, that she should not hold out for, just hold out altogether, or go do with someone else? What does she get? What do you think he said? He was so sincere and sweet. He was like, happiness. And I was like, you don't think she was happy before she met you? She could be happy after. This is a formula. Life, like for me, life has certainties. There's certain things like this, okay? You would not go to a job interview and say, let me tell you what, why don't I work here? How long is a pregnancy? Gestational period for human beings, 9 months. And say, I'm going to work for 9 months. And I'm going to labor and toil and produce this amazing project. I'm going to be an architect for almost a year. I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be a surgeon. I'm going to be a mechanic. I'm going to be a postal worker. Okay? And you know what? If you're happy after that, then maybe you can like kind of pay me a little. That would never work. That's exploitative. And you're not a volunteer, right? You need to pay your bills. There's nothing gross or dirty about money. We all need money to live. That's just the reality of it. So why is it in relationships when I say I want equal exchange for the energy that I'm bringing to you? Because you clearly want it more than I do because you're pressuring me for a baby. I didn't say anything about baby or marriage. That's you. Where's my incentive? So as soon as you make it material, people scramble, like they lose their minds. It's like It's like they've never known sense or seen sense, okay? And this is what makes me laugh. It's extremely juvenile. Okay, you know it and I know it. We both know it. So something's not clicking, something's not making sense. So then the follow-up thing my friend said to me, um, there was a little bit of like a snafu, like a social to do, if you will. Okay, it was a bit of a taboo thing. And she said, what do you think the relationship is between conviction and intelligence? And I said, if it's a strong correlation, absolutely no intelligence. And then I explained that there's different levels of intelligences that can be measured differently. But what you will consistently find is people who rank high in intelligence across the board, social, relational, emotional, high EQ, high IQ, their culture, they're worldly, they're literate. Literacy not meaning they know how to read and write. To be truly literate, you know what's happening. You know what has happened, what is happening, and what will probably happen. I said those people have this one thing in common. More often than not, they are very flexible. They're not rigid. That doesn't mean that they're cowards, doesn't mean that they don't stand for anything. They just know when to dig their heels in and when to let stuff slide, okay? So if someone is like, "What do you bring to the table?" and they've dug their heels in, I would laugh. I wouldn't now's not the time to fight fire with fire. Because basically, as you were told when you were young, a bully doesn't bully you because something's wrong with you. A bully is a bully because something's wrong with them. So if somebody wants to like double down, triple down, quadruple, quintuple down, it's them projecting that like I really, really need you. I can't afford you. So I have to warp your mind to believe me enough. But you see, the harder you fight, like the harder your grip, the more likely that thing's going to slip out of your hand. So in the Reformed Chauvinist book, he even does this. And I've said this so many times, and this was written over 30 years ago. Over 30 years ago, okay? So it's still good wisdom, which means it was effective 30 years before then and probably centuries because he goes through history. It was always true, okay? He says you have to take care. If you're a woman, your priority is your security. That includes financial. A man should not open his hand and ask you for anything ever because he gains. The minute you're in his life, you're in his field of vision, he gains. Just by looking at you, you made his day better if he finds you beautiful. If you make him laugh, it like lights him up. Like he lives off of that external validation. So why are you paying for someone to feel good about themselves? I don't understand how that works. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't walk into a therapist's office if you were miserable, throw some money on the counter and leave without your 1 hour of therapy. That's why. That's just senseless. It's a waste of energy. Money is energy. You're hemorrhaging your energy when you're with someone who drains you and belittles you all the time and threatens your sense of self and security. So with these questions like, what do you bring to the table? Well, you know what? Sorry, nothing. We have too much of a cultural divide. I don't want to live a life where I'm constantly wondering if you're going to keep the roof over our heads or if you're going to gamble your next paycheck, if you're going to go to subscribe to, these OnlyFans websites. And why? When I don't have to live under threat, So you need to be with someone who's flexible and understands the nuances of life. There's a huge rise in this very like, especially in the, I can't even say the right versus left. At the end of the day, they both they both come somewhere in the middle. But it's like a very male fact based way of thinking. It's very black and white. There's no nuance to it, like when they say like women don't make less money than men, they just work less. It's like they don't choose to work less. They have to rear children. How do you think you got here? You think you hatched from an egg that fell out of a chicken's ass? You passed through a woman. That's extremely energy intensive. That's extremely tiring. It just bounced back then like 24 hours later. So you have to understand this emotionally and socially and culturally. You have to soften and understand we're equal but different, okay? And if you really want a true equal in every sense of the word, go be with someone from your own gender. There's nothing wrong in it. It's 2024. You can do whatever you like, right? So no shame. I'm not saying that to be like snarky and like snap. Like I don't do that. But yeah, it's just so silly. So basically, when women say like you don't get anything for being with a man, it's this, it's that. That also robs you of romance. That robs you of the fun of reciprocity. It's fun to reciprocate. It's fun to receive. It's fun to give. And we give and receive differently. And those are fun things. If the only way that the people who say those things remind me of like couples who treat Christmas and birthdays like secret Santas at work. It's like, well, because we split everything down the middle, you know, Like those ladies in those Reddit posts who got pregnant and then their husbands didn't want to pay for their epidurals or emergency C-sections because that's their problem. Like, give me a break. It's like you have $20 for Christmas, you can't go over. Well, it sucks the fun out of giving. And the giver and the receiver create the act of the gift. It's not the material thing, it's the reciprocity. So, one of the reasons we love to fall in love is the mystery because it snaps us out of the mundane. You know, all that stuff, your responsibilities, your work, your commute, your pre packed lunch, the same clothes that you wear week in and week out, they're waiting for you. There's not too much exciting about that. You mean you're content with it. You're grateful. Thank God. Thank God. You know, you have something to wear and to eat and some place to be. That's all well and good. But when you're in love, you have a fantasy and that's waiting for you. And that's much more exciting. And it's good for your health. It's good for you. It's good. You have serotonin and dopamine. You release wonderful, you know, chemicals and hormones and you feel all glowy and happy. So you can't keep that going if it's like, well, I spent $21 on your present. You spent 20 on mine, actually spent 19.45, so you kind of like, I kind of like paid too much and you paid too little, so you owe me $1.55. You're like, go fuck yourself. That's the craziest thing, you know what I mean? You would just be like, what? So when you tit for tat, nickel and dime every freaking thing, it's like there's just no point in being with people like this because they're not socially and emotionally intelligent. And you ask yourself, why am I in this relationship then? It's like being with an emotional accountant. It sucks. You know, we start counting orgasms next, like, or how many breaths you take in my present. Like, did you suck in more oxygen than I did? Now we're gonna get each other's throats. So be very, very mindful. That question, I think, it's if you get asked that on a first date or over text, you should thank God immediately. Why? Exactly. You just saved yourself from a very dangerous situation. You just saved yourself from someone's going to waste your time or do worse, okay? A defensive person who's very possessive over things like that is, I said this before, I'll say it again. I said people like that are not to be trusted. They're cheap in spirit. And those videos went viral on TikTok. And I hear lots of people talking about them. And I'm glad that they did because it's important to spread the word. People who are cheap, Robert Greene, in his book, The Art of Seduction, he says there are several types of anti-seducers. And he says tightwads are just anti-seductive. They're just not fun to be around. They can't relax and like splurge, order a dessert, treat you for your birthday, you know? And it has an energy. It has a very cheap energy. And so I'm telling you from experience, people who are cheap with money are therefore, because money is time, time is money. They're cheap with their time. Then they're going to be cheap with their communication and they're going to hold out love. They're going to hold out affection. They're going to hold out all the best parts of life. You know, they'll say like, well, I'm going to see my family for the holidays, but I'm not going to go see yours because I have to pay extra gas and then I have to buy extra presents. It's like, what are you talking about? Your family is my family. So if you have to explain every single thing, every step of every relationship, just leave. Because you're clearly already bringing a feast to the table at that person's house, and that makes no sense. If they're inviting you to that dinner, it's under the assumption that they're hosting. There is a feast, a beautifully laid table. All you have to do is graciously eat, drink, and be merry. And say thank you at the end of the night. You know, enjoy each other's company. That's like the way that I would see it. So I hope that makes sense. And for people who are like, oh, like women are so material, this, that, the other, and they're offended by this, you have to understand this is a protective measure. And not only is it a protect, and a lot of, I understand a lot of, I won't say men, boys, they don't take that seriously. They think that it's like a bunch of hoopla and it means nothing. They don't understand the constant threat like women are actually under. And if you actually cared about women, you actually cared about their safety, you would go out of your way to supply provision of all kinds: psychological, security, social, worldly, financial, property, everything, all the time, so she can kick it and be glad, you know? And so when you're cheap, let's say, in this case, you invited someone to your house for dinner but don't actually feed them, why would they stay? Nothing's wrong with them for not staying. They're hungry. They're going to go eat somewhere else. So anyway, you'll see a lot of men who maybe been married more than once or been married a long time. They know. They already know this is how it is. This is how it goes. Okay, you know it and I know it, and that's just what's up. So yeah, if you want to be happy, you have to stop asking that stupid question. But if you do ask the question and you're a woman and you hear the question, I'd be glad because you get to save your time. You don't have to invest to take anything seriously. And honestly, You wouldn't even be friends with people like this. This is the other thing I always say. First of all, convert every relationship question if you're trying to increase your relationship intelligence and your relational intelligence to other people. Would it work in the career field? No, it wouldn't. When you stay late, you tend to put in for overtime or increase a budget for a project. You invoice people, right? If you're a business owner. So do the same with your emotion. Secondly, is would you do that to your friends? But your lover is supposed to be your friend first and foremost. They're supposed to be your best friend. So they're supposed to treat you better than all their friends. If they're not doing that, something's clearly very much the matter. So it's not that it's the matter with you unless you allow it to happen. And the book explains, at this point, if you forgive a transgression, all you have really done is, I'm not going to say man, but that person, you've taught that person that they can transgress time and time again. And the second time it happens, it's actually harder to get out because they're not going to believe you, right? So, and they're going to put up obstacles and challenges because they knew how sweet it was the first time you just said, you know what, you matter more than I do. Go ahead and hurt me again. And they are like, okay. And they take you up on that offer. That's why we say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So the best thing you can do is, they say smart people learn from their own mistakes, but wise people learn from the mistakes of others. It's just don't get into that situation in the first place. So when someone asks, what do you bring to the table? Just say nothing. I bring myself. That's it. You supply everything. That's why you've invited me. Would you invite me to your house and have other friends there and you feed those friends, but not me? And they might say something smart alecky like, yeah, but they're my friends. I know them. Say good for you. But how'd you get to know them? How'd you get to know them? They bought a round, so you bought them the next round, and then you broke bread, you hung out, right? You had each other's birthdays, etc. So if you don't invest in me at least as a friend, number one, it's dehumanizing. So they don't even see you as a human being; they see you as a sex object. That's just the first thing. So then just make it light. Just make it light. Just be like, oh, so I guess we can't even be friends. So we can't be more than that anyway. So I guess we're not even acquaintances. Godspeed. Anyways, I hope that made sense. I hope that answered the question. So you should be flexible. You should be able to understand nuance and cultural norms. And a lot of places in the world, this is just how it goes. Okay, men supply provision. They know that that's what's expected of them, and they're happy to do it. It's not a sacrifice. They're happy to do it. They wear it like a badge of honor. They love it because their wives are glowing and joyful, and they have private businesses, and they don't have to struggle. And if you don't want to do that, then at least just know what not to say and what not to ask, because it comes across as tightwad energy and nobody likes that, because you'll be cheap in bed. You'll be cheap on her birthday. You've got to actually relax. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to invest in love, don't waste other people's time. Just be alone. That's the way to go, I don't know, join a Franciscan order or something like that. Disavow all your material possessions and become a monk. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed it, and hope that answers your questions. And yeah, I'll see you on Patreon, where we're having a great time. And we're going to get back more into astrology towards the end of the year, about a month. Oh, it's exactly 1919. Yeah, so the end of the year, I like to do, I don't know why, every Christmas I get really into Nostradamus prophecies and Baba Vanga. So I'm going to see what is in store for 2025 and beyond. And if you're on Patreon, we've covered Elon Musk's chart, JD Vance. I correctly predicted Donald Trump winning the election. We did Tim Waltz, Kamala Harris, of course. And yeah, I take requests on Patreon as well. So I'm happy to do other people's charts, and people are quite curious about what's going to happen in the state of the world. And I've definitely discussed that, the future of America for 2025 and a little bit beyond. So yeah, God bless us all. I hope you're well, and much love to you, my friends. Bye for now.